Hey guys, welcome back. So I'm finally sharing my tried and true macaroni and cheese recipe. I've made this at potlucks, family gatherings, and it's always been a hit. There's no eggs in this, it's not 3 million cheeses, it's a secret cheese that I use in this, and I'm finally sharing the recipe so everyone can stop asking me what I use. So yeah, the first thing you're gonna need is 2 bags of macaroni. Realistically, you only need 1, but I like to fill my foil pan to the brim, so I'll be using like 2 palmfuls of the second bag, and you're gonna see that in a second. I know everyone already knows how to make boil macaroni, but what I see people usually do is add oil to their macaroni water. Do not add oil to any type of pasta water, because what it does, it makes your pasta really slick, and whatever sauce you're putting on top of it, it does not adhere to your macaroni. Cooking is a science, guys. So right here you just see me stirring it, making sure that the pasta doesn't stick together. I'm using natural sea salt, just probably just like a teaspoon. I'm from the Caribbean, so you know we use our hands to measure. We don't really use like measurements. So that was like a teaspoon of salt. I'm gonna bring it to a boil, and for my baked macaroni and cheese, I like to overcook my pasta just a little bit, just a tiny bit, because I don't like hard pasta in my baked macaroni and cheese. Now this is my secret ingredient, Velveeta cheese. We'll be adding it to a cream sauce, which is the best way to make baked mac and cheese. Don't just add a bunch of grated cheeses to like a pan. You're gonna end up with a hot, oily mess. I love this cheese because it has 50% less fat than other cheeses. So it's not like a oily, weird texture, and it just melts better into the sauce. It also has like a really distinct taste, which is really, really good. It's just, guys, don't fight with me on this one. Just try it. Also, for your cheeses, you're not gonna get shredded cheeses in the bag, because those are coated with like it's coated with something to make the cheeses not stick together, and I don't want that in my sauce. So Velveeta cheese is gonna be the main ingredient in this mac and cheese. This is also one of my secrets to my cheese sauce. This is red annatto dye. Red annatto, it comes from like a tropical fruit. It's just seeds from the fruit, and it's really, really red. It has no taste to it whatsoever. A lot of people add paprika to their cheese sauce to make it redder, but that has a flavoring to it. So I'm using red annatto, and it's just basically a flavorless dye, and it's also what gives cheese its color. When cheeses are made in a factory, it's actually white, but this is what they add to the cheese to make it yellow. So I'm just adding more of that to my sauce. I'm cutting the block in half so I can evenly cut up the cheese in cubes, because Velveeta cheese is very, very smooth, and you can't grate it because it's just too smooth. So I'm just cutting it up, and I'm actually just using 1.5 blocks of it. Here I'm starting off my sauce with I'm using 2 tablespoons of melted butter and 2 tablespoons of flour, so I'm using equal parts. By the way, my butter is not unsalted. It does have salt in it. But yeah, so 2 tablespoons of flour, 2 tablespoons of butter. You're gonna whisk it until you cook out that raw taste of the flour. You don't want to add your milk immediately after. So I'm doing this for about like 2 minutes. Don't do this too long where your roux turns brown. You don't want to do that, because then your sauce is going to taste burnt. So I did this for 2 minutes on probably like medium heat. I'm adding 2 cans of milk, but I'm adding the milk gradually. You don't want to add all the milk at the same time, because you're going to have a very lumpy consistency. You should just add a little bit, mix it around, make sure it's smooth, and then you can add all your milk. I'm using evaporated milk because it has a creamier consistency. Evaporated milk is basically whole milk with 50% of the water, or 60% of it, taken out. So it tastes a lot more creamier, and it's basically made for cooking. I grew up on this milk. We make scalloped potatoes with it, baked mac and cheese. Like, it's just a better milk to use. You can use half and half or heavy cream, but I've never used those milks to cook with. But just try the evaporated milk. It just tastes a lot better, and it's cheaper. So you're gonna see me adding this second can of milk to the pan, and I'm basically gonna mix it around until the milk gets warm. Then I add annatto after I warm the milk, and I like to add it at this point because the milk is thinner, so it's easier to mix around. Like if I add the cheese and then I add the annatto, the consistency is too thick, and it takes a lot more elbow grease to mix. So I just add it now. And one of the reasons why I use annatto is because The Velveeta cheese is very potent and salty, but by the time I add that small amount of cheese to all this milk, it won't be yellow anymore. So to kind of like fake it and make people think that I use a lot of cheese, I use Annatto. I'll also be using half of the block of the sharp cheddar cheese that I showed you guys earlier and add it to the sauce. This is gonna take you about like 15 minutes to get everything like evenly melted and all that jazz. But yeah, I'm just using half of it, maybe even like a quarter, and I'm just gonna use the rest of that cheese to put on top of the macaroni. You're gonna continue mixing your sauce until it thickens. Just continuously mix it because if you don't, then the bottom will burn. But the longer you keep your cheese sauce on the stove, the thicker it will get. However, I don't like to keep it on the stove for too long because I like when my sauce is a little bit thin so it can flow throughout the holes of the noodles. So I'm going to show you guys in a second the consistency that I like to keep it at because the sauce, it also thickens when you put it in the oven. Then I'm going to add the remainder of sharp cheddar cheese on top. And last minute, I decided to add a quarter of that block of Monterey Jack cheese just because I wanted it to be extra crusty at the top and I wanted like a variation of color. So I'm going to add all the cheeses and then make sure when you bake this, you're going to bake it at the top shelf of your oven. The top shelf of your oven is where is the hottest point of the oven because hot air rises. So I'm baking it at the top with the foil cover on. You want to make sure you put a foil cover on for the first 10 minutes you're cooking it because you want all the flavors to marry and you don't want it to get golden brown as soon as you put it in. So I have it baking at about 375 degrees and this is how it came out for the first 10 minutes. And you're going to put it back in and for the remainder, about like 30 minutes, you're just going to let it get golden brown and crispy. And this is how it should look. And that's about it. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Let me know if you guys do decide to try this recipe. I highly recommend that you guys do. And when you do, you don't have to give me credit for it. Just message me on Instagram and let me know what are your thoughts. This is not no Drea mac and cheese recipe. This is like expert level 1000 mac and cheese.